Paranormal King Radio Network at ParanormalKing.com.
Welcome to the Paranormal News Insider for July 31st, 2018. And this is episode number 362. And this is your host, Dr. Brian D. Parsons. This week is a really, I don't know how to put it, weird week. Not just paranormal, it's out there. It's really weird. Lots of strange stories in the news. I don't know, maybe it was the full moon last week. I'm not sure, but it's truly a strange week in the paranormal. And speaking of the full moon, this week's news includes the full moon prediction fails again. And if you've listened to the show for any period of time, you've heard me talk about these full moon predictions, the end of the world, over and over and over. And here we are, still living it out. We're also going to talk about the evil and even the erotic side of Bigfoot. Not too much of the erotic stuff. Got to keep it clean for the kiddies. We'll also talk about Bigfoot bones classified by scientists. Could it be true? And what about that dead Bigfoot body discovered in Maryland? We have a scoop on that one. And Project Blue Book, well, it's coming back. It's making a comeback this winter. And here's a weird one. Her name is Rio, and she dances in outer space. I don't know who writes this stuff. I'm going to have to fire my writers, I think. And an underground lake on Mars. You probably heard about that story. We're going to talk a little bit of depth in that. I know it's not paranormal, but it's outer space stuff, and it could lead to the discovery of life. So we've got to cover that. And it's science. This show is about the paranormal, but it's also a little bit about science as well. And we'll also hopefully have time here for a new space telescope ready to search for exoplanets. Yeah, so I was afraid at first going into this week's show that I wasn't going to have a whole lot of time to prepare and to come up with some stories and get everything written out for you guys, because Friday night, right after work, I headed straight out to Western Pennsylvania here from Northeast Ohio for the Kecksburg UFO Festival. And I had a fantastic time out there, even though they didn't have a burnout contest. And I didn't take part in the hot dog eating contest this year. Again, I don't know. I just didn't have any room. But it was an awesome time hanging out with a lot of good friends and fellow researchers out there. Most of, well, actually, I showed up a little late. I didn't actually go there Friday. But I was there all day Saturday and most of the day on Sunday. So it's basically a 3-day event. So it's a long time hanging out in the little hall back there, and got to see some good friends, Ronald Murphy, Jimmy and Dee Trick, Dave Drageson, and even Eric Altman, who wasn't really scheduled to be there. He showed up. He just popped in there and passed out some flyers for an event, which I'll talk about here in a second. There's a lot of other people floating around that stopped in, some people that I've remember from last year and even the year before that it stopped in. Ricky Chirby came in there, a friend of mine from Pennsylvania. He's an awesome Bigfoot researcher, great guy as well. And all sorts of people, like I mentioned, were popping in there. And they also had the speakers, Bob Gaddy, Ed Kellerman, very busy at his table with all his local haunting books. Seth Breedlove, who actually was not physically there. He was in California actually all weekend, but he was able to. Well, he didn't show it, but we showed it. Well, I didn't show it. Somebody showed it. It was there on the big screen. Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, which covers the Kecksburg incident and the strange encounters around the ridge, and also Aaron Dunbar from Kittening, a local Pennsylvania person, author, writer, I guess now movie producer. He showed a Bigfoot movie called A Wish for Giants, which is basically, it's a tearjerker. It's an inspirational movie, but it's one that I highly recommend you check out. awishforgiants.com. Read the book or watch the movie. It's very heartwarming, and highly recommend that. So the entire weekend was just a lot of fun. Just being able to hang out and talk about a variety of subjects. Seemed like there was a lot of Bigfoot people there. I think I have Bigfoot on the brain this week a little bit too. We have a ton of Bigfoot stories lined up for you. But it was really interesting to talk about big cat sightings and Bigfoot and UFO stuff and all sorts of things with all the people that were out there visiting at the Kecksburg UFO Festival for 2018. And I look forward to next year. I'll be there one way or the other, I'm sure. And now I get a nice little break. Kind of actually excited about this. I have some projects that I'd like to get wrapped up for the fall. I actually don't have anything on my calendar physically to go to until October. Not till October 5th and 6th. I'll be at the Uncon 12, the Unconventional Convention, I guess it's called. Unconventional. That's going to be in Piqua, Ohio. And I'll be talking about cryptozoology, which is going to be really interesting. It's not really a paranormal conference. It's just an unconventional type of conference, and it's going to have a theme this year of alien freak show. Alien freak show. So that's going to be interesting to try to weave the whole cryptozoology thing there. It's going to be neat. But then the next weekend, October 13th, I'm going to be at the Albert Witch Festival in Columbia, Pennsylvania. It's quite a haul for me. It's a long drive, but yeah, it's going to be fun. And I'm going to be speaking with fellow speakers Tim Renner and Rick Fisher. Rick's a pretty good friend of mine. I've been able to hang out with him quite a bit over the years at various conventions, and I'm very honored to be in that mix with those guys. And, well, I got another October thing, but we got a long way to go till October, right? It's quite far away. But I'm excited for that, and also excited to get a little vacation. I'm supposed to have an event in August, but that got scrubbed. But that's okay. We'll do it next year, more than likely. And I kind of mentioned Eric Altman and his event that's coming up that he was kind of advertising there. And that's actually for 2019. 2019. But I'm excited already. Not that I'm excited for 2019, but I'm excited for this event. It's going to happen May 31st through June 2nd. It's the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure version 3. Really, really excited about this. It's going to be taking place at Benner's Meadow Run Cabins in Farmington, Pennsylvania. And I'm telling you, it is going to be the time of all times. And I say this all the time. The first one that occurred was a little cold and rainy and wet, but it was exciting, and I had a lot of fun. And the following year, last year, was also a lot of fun. It was just a little bit warmer, but I think about the same amount of wetness. But it was a great time, and I'm telling you, keep an eye on the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure. And I don't have the let's see, what's the actual website here? Let's see, PABigfootCampingAdventure.com is the official website. Keep your eyes peeled on that, or find it on Facebook as well. You'll get up-to-the-minute updates on this. There's some big announcements that are going to be made about this event that's happening May 31st, June 1st, and June 2nd of 2019 at Benner's Meadow Run Campground in Farmington, Pennsylvania, in Fayette County. The tickets are going to go on sale September 1st, 2018, and I highly recommend, if you have any interest in Bigfoot, you have any interest in cryptozoology at all, and you want to get out there and you want to experience what it's like to go and look for this stuff, yeah, that's how good this is going to be. We're out in the woods. We're camping and we're going to take you out there. We're going to take you Bigfoot hunting. So far, Jay Bachochin, Rick Fisher, Paul G. Johnson, Dave Spinks, David Weatherly, Rosemary Ellen Guiley, Seth Breedlove, and myself have already been announced. We got a lot more people to come, and there's some special guests, some of which I already know. And my gosh, you know how hard it is for me not to tell you right now. I really want to say it because I'm excited about it. This is going to be the event of all events for Bigfoot. I cannot wait till next year. And I'll probably talk about this for 20 minutes every episode between now and next year. You're going to get tired of it. But right now, I'm just letting you know that you got a month to decide, to get ready, to get out there and experience what we experience. Plenty of vendors. Well, I should say a handful of vendors are going to be out there. We're actually going to have workshops. So you're going to learn how to do some of the things that we do out there in the field, and as well as speakers that are going to be talking about what we do and how we do it, as well as actually being able to take you out in the woods. Now, it sounds scary, but it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of kids that come out to this, and it's really fun to get out there and explain to them what's going on and what we do and how we do it. And let's see, I got one other announcement. Let's see, well, on the wrong calendar here. So Wednesday, August 8th, you know that I'm live right here on every week. I'm live here on the Paranormal King Radio Network at paranormalking.com every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Well, I'm going to have back-to-back shows next week. So after next week's show, which I'm on August 7th, on August 8th, tune into the same network. Again, paranormalking.com. I'm going to be a guest on the boss's show, Paranormal King Radio Network. I'm going to be talking to the boss live on the radio. So this is going to be an interesting show for me. I'm going to be on the hot seat. But you're going to learn a lot more about me, what I'm doing, how I do it, what I think, and what I feel about a lot of stuff right here on the Paranormal King Radio Network. And again, that's August 8th at 8 p.m. I'm going to be there. I love talking on the radio. I like being on the other side of the mic, too. Being on this side is fun, but being on the other side is also fun. And you may wonder, what do I mean? What do I mean on the other side of the mic? You know, always talking to the same side of the mic. But, I mean, as a guest, it's always fun to be a guest. All right, semantics aside, what else is going on out there? Well, strange stuff here. Just all this Bigfoot stuff. But we had this full moon thing. Real quick, let me mention, though, that if you have any information about any paranormal conference or convention, you hear me talking about mine every single week. That's because they're mine. I'm involved in these things. I'm actually there speaking or hanging out. But if you have any information about any paranormal conference or convention, whether it's ghost related, cryptozoological related, or UFO related, well, I bet you didn't know, but I got a list for that. If you head over to paranewsinsider.com and click on the events tab at the top, you're going to find a list of paranormal conferences, conventions. Now, I do my best, but I'm not perfect. Yes, you heard it. I've said it. I'm not perfect. I do my best to put as many conferences and conventions on this list as humanly possible, but I don't always have the time to search and find everything that's out there. And I know there's a lot that I've missed, a lot that I've not been able to find. And some were not put out there, I should say. They weren't confirmed or official, so I held off putting them on there, and maybe I forgot about them. So if you see anything that's not on that list that you know is taking place, shoot me an email. If you still email, I don't know, this is 2018. Go to paranewsinsider.com and click on the Contact tab after you've checked out the list on the Events tab, and send me an email, and I'll get that fixed. Just make sure you're telling me what the event is, when it is, and give me a link to the website. Makes my job a little bit easier to put that information on the website for you guys. And maybe, just maybe I'll mention it, such as the Preston Castle 4th Annual Benefit Paranormal Conference taking place August 3rd and 4th in Ione, California, coming up, obviously, at the end of the week. And the Central Paranormal Convention, that's PA, Renormal Convention, really tricky there, August 3rd through the 5th in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Also had the Kansas City Paracon, August 3rd through the 5th, and where else but Kansas City, Missouri. The Maryland Paranormal Conference, August 4th in Gambrills, Maryland. And I got one repeated there. Nobody told me that. I got to fix that. Anyway, check out the full list of conferences, conventions. Nothing happening in UFO stuff for a little while. And I don't have anything on the list. Well, the Oregon Bigfoot Festival, August 18th, is the next cryptid-based paranormal conference or convention happening. That's in Troutville, Oregon. But again, paranewsinsider.com, and check out the events tab at the top. And yes, it was a full moon last week, and every time there's a full moon, there's always something special about it, right? There's always some sort of name to it. It's either blood this or pink that or yellow or dinosaur moon. I don't know where they come up with this kind of stuff, but it's out there. And last week, it was a close one, folks, because I want to let everybody know I'm really happy that everyone's safe. If you're listening to the show, you made it. But unfortunately, something really sad actually did happen with this, which is a little spooky, but nothing to be concerned about. July 27th was the blood moon, and as per usual, it was predicted that a major earthquake would accompany this full moon. Now, our old friend, Frank Hoogerbeets, I just love his name, Frank Hoogerbeets. What a cool name. He was behind the threat once again, as he's been in the past. And also, just like past threats, he made a very general prediction of a magnitude 7 or maybe a magnitude 6, whatever works. Earthquake happening between July 27th and July 30th. Well, his prediction was partially right. While he said there has not been a magnitude 7 earthquake since a 6 point, since I should say February 25th, there was actually a 6.4 magnitude earthquake that was felt in Indonesia during this time. So, ooh, was he right? This makes things interesting. Maybe he's right. Maybe he's onto something. Maybe the full moon, and one day it's going to rip the earth apart. Maybe it's going to shake us, shake the foundation. Maybe it's going to tear the earth apart. Maybe this guy's onto something, right? So the blue moon, or I should say blood moon, who knows what color it is or what it is this month. I can't follow this stuff. There's just too much going on with the moon. Was it responsible? Well, let me answer that in one word. Nope. So there were 5 other earthquakes with a magnitude 6 or higher in the month of July so far. So if you do quick statistical probabilities on this, it was pretty much within that statistical range that another earthquake over magnitude 6 would hit before the end of the month, or at least within this 72-hour window. So not much really going out on a limb there to predict that. And yeah, I mean, anybody that knows anything about statistics or probability would roll their eyes at that kind of prediction when they saw the information behind it. And while the last magnitude 7 earthquake was back on February 25th, there's actually been 4 other magnitude 7 earthquakes already this year. So it's not that rare. Now, this would be a little harder to guess as it's a little statistically outside the probability of the window, but it's not impossible. And it sounds scary. But again, he threw magnitude 6 in there as well, which really opened up the odds in his favor. And many people, when I have this conversation, or, I tell this story over and over again, people will say, well, wait a minute. The moon affects the tides, so it has to affect the Earth's surface and therefore cause earthquakes. Yeah, so it's simple, right? It also makes us crazy because we're what, 70% water? So yeah, sure. It's all relative. It all makes sense. We're all crazy every time there's a full moon. Well, some of us are crazy all the time. Well, water is a lot different than the Earth's crust. I hope you would realize this. Now, the moon does pull the crust up just a bit. Just a bit. It's mere centimeters. Centimeters. I don't know what to say here in the United States. Not even inches, I guess I could put. Barely detectable. Very small increment that the crust moves from the full moon. The water, obviously, we can see it move many feet, but you're talking a very large object that's all one thing. It's water, and it's easily movable. It's easily malleable. So that's why it's affected more so by the gravitational pull of the moon. But you know, I live pretty close to Lake Erie. It's a pretty large body of water, but you can barely detect any sort of movement of it by tidal forces. You know, then we get into the whole science of actual earthquakes, and we don't even have to argue about whether the gravitational forces of the moon can cause earthquakes, because earthquakes are caused by any sort of pressure change between the plates, and we all know about this from some of the fracking that happens when people pour lubricants down into the Earth's crust. It creates the slip in pressure. So yeah, it's really not so much the moon. It's a lot of other forces that happen with this. It's really, there's been a lot of people that have said, oh, it's true. There's studies that are out there, but that's really not true. There's a few studies out there that say that earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, crazy people, all sorts of things, lunacy, which comes from the moon, is related to the full moon. But in fact, many other more rational studies that look at things more objectively, tracing earthquakes to lunar phases, there is no correlation between the two. There is no correlation between a lot of things that people attribute to the moon. There's a lot of other forces at work here that are far more effective than that little puny rock that's way out there in space. It looks pretty close. I get that. You know, when you're seeing it in the sky, it looks pretty close, but it's pretty far away. And it really doesn't do as much as the sun does. Yeah, and if you talk about other planets like Mercury or Mars, yes, Mars is closest to Earth right now as it's been in 15 years. A big whoop. Doesn't really have anything to do with anything here. Won't make anybody crazier. Won't give you bad luck unless you believe in it. It doesn't really affect anything. Yeah, I mean, don't worry about it, folks. It's not really related. Anyway, glad everyone's okay. But unfortunately, the earthquake that did happen in Indonesia, I believe there was 14 people that lost their lives in that. So don't really want to poke too much fun at all this stuff, but there is no correlation with the full moon, unfortunately, for those people that believe in that. Anyway, let's jump to cryptid news. So Bigfoot, you know, Bigfoot's probably the #1 most popular cryptid out there. Yeah, and he's been in the news this last week a lot. He's been trending on Twitter, trending on a lot of big stories lately. But not all of these stories about Bigfoot are actually about the creature we know and love, and some of them are not even true. So let's sort through this hairy mess of Bigfoot stories in the last week. Probably one of the more zanier ones here kind of compares Bigfoot and UFO sightings. And what's funny is on Saturday, I wore a Bigfoot shirt. Well, it was a Bigfoot and UFO shirt. So it had a UFO with beaming a light down on a Bigfoot. And everybody liked that. And I thought it was neat because it correlated UFOs and Bigfoot, which in 1973, one of the researchers there at the Kecksburg UFO Festival. Stan Gordon was one of probably the authority on the researching of a bunch of cases. A Bigfoot outbreak in 1973 in Western Pennsylvania that was actually tied to a lot of UFO reports in Western Pennsylvania. So is there a correlation with those two? He would say yes. And it's an often asked question. Are Bigfoot and UFOs related? Well, in some cases, yes. Not all cases, but there's an interesting correlation in a lot of reports all over the world, not just in Western Pennsylvania, not just back in 1973, but let's take this a little further. Is Bigfoot and UFOs, or are those two phenomena created by the devil? How about that? How's a question like that fit here? Well, that's a completely different question, and it's actually tied into politics, which if you follow the show, I like to stay away from politics as much as possible. It's a very controversial thing. Doesn't matter who you like, who you don't like. People will always argue politics. It's one thing that you don't talk about in the workplace, and I don't want to talk about it on the radio show. But I can't help it this week because this story is just so out there. I can't resist. I'll try to keep the politics out of it as much as I can. But yeah, the devil and Bigfoot, hand in hand. Maybe one and the same. Who knows? So last week, anti-gay marriage activist Tim Daly appeared on the Janet Mefford live radio show and stated that Bigfoot is nothing more than a demonic virtual reality projection. Well, here's his whole words. His words, not mine, folks. And I'll even preface that with a quote. Number one, you have many reliable observers who have seen Bigfoot. These are not kids on a prank. The second thing is a virtual absence of any evidence of their existence. So it shows that what's going on is not really a physical phenomena. It's real. It's a projection. It's a demonic virtual reality. But it's not nuts and bolts, or in this case, flesh and blood. Unquote. Not my words. His words. Tim Daly's words. Yeah, he is off his rocker. You are correct. Daly essentially feels that Bigfoot, UFOs, Ouija boards, even newspaper horoscopes, and a whole list of other paranormal phenomena are just part of a grand conspiracy that is led by the devil himself. Or maybe herself. I don't know. In this day and age of political stuff, I'm afraid to say himself anymore. I'll probably get in trouble. I'll get banned from the radio for life. I don't know. Do I have to apologize now? Or do I do it on Twitter? I'm not sure. Maybe the devil doesn't have an identity of any type of gender. I don't know. And I'm going to end this conversation before I get into too much trouble. But why would the devil be doing this? Well, Daly, just ask him. He's got it all figured out. And of course, he's got it all figured out. He says, quote, it's part of the devil's modus operandi. Ooh, technical terms. He's always used this kind of phenomena to, once again, destabilize, engender fear, open us up to the possibility of other realities, other beings. Then we begin to getting involved with demonic spirits. All through history, there have been many varieties of beings that are primarily spiritual beings who have terrorized civilizations and people. Non-Christian cultures are very aware of this because they have to deal with these beings all the time. And that's what they have shamans for, to hold these spirit beings at bay. We're getting to that stage here in the United States. Unquote. Well, you know what? I can see that series coming to Netflix. That would be a really exciting series. So what I'm thinking here is what he's trying to say, I guess, is Zach Bagans and Matt Moneymaker. These guys are shamans here to lead us to the truth and defeat the evil devil that's disguised as Bigfoot or flying around with a UFO that's not really there. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm confused. Daly is the author of a book called The Paranormal Conspiracy, The Truth About Ghosts, Aliens, and Mysterious Beings, which was published back in 2015. And they were taking kind of quotes out of this book, talking about this during his radio interview. That's an awful long time to write out a PR campaign on a book. 3 years. I think it's time to either put something out there or maybe do something else. But if you're that desperate to sell some books, I'm not sure. And, as tempting as it is, I think I'm going to leave it off my list of books that I want to read. Whew. Yeah. The Georgia Bigfoot hoax, that was, a list of people that were involved in that. Tom Biscardi was part of that. And you also had, what were those guys' names? Unfortunately, one of them is still around. He's actually part of the fabric of cryptozoology still. Rick Dyer, but you also had Matt Whitten. Those two guys totally made fun of people in cryptozoology back in 2008, and yet Rick Dyer is the Bigfoot investigator of all time. So he says. Yeah. Speaking of hoax, we got that coming up here in a second. But first, why not? We're on a roll. Let's talk more politics. All right. Well, how about politics meets Bigfoot? Because this is interesting. Now, again, I was at a paranormal conference, or UFO conference, I should say, over the weekend, the Kecksburg UFO Festival. And where we were at in this room, this hall, the cell phone signal was not very good. I had no Wi-Fi, had barely any kind of signal at all, so I had to kind of go outside to get any sort of signal. But I had an alert that night when I got back to the hotel. Bigfoot was trending on Twitter heavily. And I thought, uh-oh, what's going on? I've got to find out. And kind of wish I wouldn't have. Not because it had nothing to do with the discovery of Bigfoot, which I thought it was. Maybe somebody found something or saw something, or there's some weird report, or I don't know. I didn't take it overly serious, but Bigfoot rarely trends on Twitter that big. So I was curious, what's going on? It had nothing to do, again, with the discovery of one, or even a TV show where they didn't find one. But it was probably one of the furthest out there stories when I clicked on this thing and I found out what was going on. I had to do a double take, a triple take. And I couldn't believe my eyes, what I saw. Yeah, you probably saw this picture too. Probably one of the furthest out there stories on Bigfoot I've ever had to talk about. And yeah, the one we just talked about, that was pretty far out there. But this one is beyond the outer limits of sanity. And I'll tell you what, the subject of Bigfoot, it just got a little bit more uncomfortable. And I was a little worried on Sunday that somebody would bring this up or ask me about it, put me on the spot, and ask me this question, which is now leading a lot of stories out there. If you look up Bigfoot and you click on the news. So if you Google Bigfoot and click on news, you'll probably see a lot of this story popping up. And this question that's being asked around all sorts of news outlets right now is, quote, what is Bigfoot erotica? Question mark, unquote. Yeah, what is Bigfoot erotica? Well, I don't think you have to have much of an imagination to figure that out. But why is this trending on Twitter? Well, Leslie Cockburn, and I swear the story is true. I'm not making any of this stuff up. I couldn't possibly be this creative. Yes, the name is Leslie Cockburn, a Democrat who's running for Congress in Virginia's 5th District, accused her Republican opponent, Denver Riggleman, of being a, quote, devotee of Bigfoot erotica, unquote, via Twitter on July 29th. I don't know how I could do this with a straight face. I really don't. The tweet read, quote, my opponent, Denver Riggleman, running mate of Corey Stewart, was caught on camera campaigning with a white supremacist. Now, he has been exposed as a devotee of Bigfoot erotica. This is not what we need on Capitol Hill, unquote. I mean, I don't know if you're following this kind of stuff, but in a day and age where people are losing their jobs, basically being publicly tormented over 10-year-old plus tweets, people losing their jobs and just receiving all sorts of public hate and threats over decades old tweets, you think you'd be a little bit more careful about what you're posting on social media. And along with this tweet, was a very interesting photograph, one which I'm not going to share in the chat room. So if you're in the chat room, you're not going to see that, but you'll probably see it when I post the story out there. It's not something I really want to share on the chat room, but it's interesting. It's a hand-sketched Bigfoot with a little bar censoring a certain area of the said Bigfoot. So use your imagination with that one. Political analyst David Wasserman stated on the Cook Political Report website, quote, "The most curious element of Riggleman's background may be a recently deleted Facebook author page appearing to promote a self-published book titled The Mating Habits of Bigfoot and Why Women Want Him." Yikes. Now, Riggleman, meanwhile, states that he did co-author a book, but describes it as a, quote, anthropological book sort of based on parody and satire, whatever that means, unquote. He states it is a running joke with some friends that's been going on for 14 years. I'm not sure about this story. This is a little out there. The book, Bigfoot Exterminators Incorporated, the partially cautionary, mostly true tale of Monster Hunt 2006, about a group that was that actually investigates Bigfoot, was co-authored by Denver Riggleman as well. And Riggleman said, quote, "I thought it was funny. There is no way that anybody's dumb enough to think this is real. I do not believe that Bigfoot is real, but I don't want to alienate any Bigfoot voters," unquote. And that was my emphasis there on voters. Yeah, kind of weird. If you don't believe in this stuff, why are you writing books about it? I mean, yeah, people write fiction all the time, but you're not an author. You're not an author. Yeah, the Washington Post did a little background research on the topic of Bigfoot erotica. Not my research. Now, normally I love to research stories about this kind of stuff, but this one, I just took their word for it. Normally I like to fact check and look into things, but again, this one I just kind of left out there. Wasn't going to check it out for myself. But I thought this was interesting. Again, not my research. Figured I'd point that out. That these types of books, again, Bigfoot erotica, and also like monster erotica. I guess there's a main focus on this. You get into cryptozoological animals, mythical beasts, and then other animals, which is one of the complaints that people had, that it's bordering on, you know what that word is, beastie something or other, which I'm not going to mention on the air. So it's tied into some really nasty stuff. So that's why Amazon, there was a big controversy a number of years ago that these books on that particular subject were being sold at Amazon. They were pulled off. But there's still authors out there that are putting books out there. They're a little bit, the descriptions say adult only, and they kind of cleaned up a little bit of it, but it's still probably more than likely the same kind of stuff between the covers. More ways than one between the covers, if you know what I mean. Books and Bigfoot. Did I have to spell that out for you? Anyway, the books are actually very popular. I don't know about Amazon, but everywhere else. Apparently, again, not my research, not my opinion. What the story is talking about here, and this is actually from the Washington Post. Yes, the Washington Post did a little research. I don't know. I guess maybe they used an intern. Here, I need you to look into this subject for us. Do some research. So actually, yes, the books are very popular. And author Virginia Wade stated that she made as much as $30,000 a month from writing monster erotica books. You know, I did a lot of talking to Ronald Murphy Jr. During the Kecksburg UFO Festival about some projects and ideas that I had. But you know what? Maybe I've been writing the wrong kind of books. Maybe I will do some digging into this stuff. Now, Riggleman has since made more comments about this topic, stating that it's a religious war going on between different types of Bigfoot believers. Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. There was some kind of interview yesterday afternoon on a Kibble on Liberty show. I didn't listen to it. I had enough of this story. I think this is really twisted. But I don't know. I'm starting to think this guy maybe is into something. You know, and it's fine. You know, all this, everyone's so sensitive about everything and everybody, and we're not allowed to hate anybody. We're supposed to like everybody no matter what. Which I don't know why. Why should we have to like everything and everybody in the world? None of us all get along. Come on. It's just life. We're human. We conquer and kill everything since we've been around. That's just our nature. It's not something to brag about, but it's just what we are. Can't help it. But if the guy's into, certain kind of genre of books, who am I to tell him he's wrong? I mean, maybe this guy will actually get a lot of votes. I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out in the polls. And I guess the polls could be up for him. I don't know. All right, let's leave that one where it lies and continue on our Bigfoot scavenger hunt of stories here. And this is a story passed along by somebody who's in the chat room right there. Wave hello, Dita. There she is. She sent this story along. I'd seen it. It popped up in my Bigfoot feed for my Google News search. I get an email for every day. There she is, waving. A little late on that one. That's okay. I get news alerts from a lot of different subject matters, and Bigfoot popped up, and I was like, this is not about Bigfoot. At first, I was a little kind of, my eyes got all wide because it said that Bigfoot bones were discovered in the Black Hills area of Wyoming. And I was like, wait, what? That's usually dinosaur country. How could they find one out there? So yes, Bigfoot bones were discovered in the Black Hills area of Wyoming. It's true. But it's not quite what you might think. A headline of a discovery has been circulating, has led to a little bit of confusion. I've seen some Bigfoot people or Bigfoot believer type people, not necessarily researchers, posting this story, and I don't think they read through it. Now, the website Live Science published a story titled, "Maybe Bigfoot Was a Dinosaur, If These Fossils Are Any Indication," which sounds like this is a distinct possibility. This is true. But the headline, I should say beyond the headline of this story, it's actually about a dinosaur discovery that took place back in 1998. The dinosaur, which is now known as Titanosaurus, is not a bipedal creature, but it was a quadrupedal dinosaur, so 4 legs. Didn't run around on 2. That actually has a long neck, and it's very similar to other fellow sauropods, Diplodocus and Brachiosaurus, which was made famous in the Jurassic Park movie. When they first saw the dinosaurs, this was the dinosaur that Dr. Grant saw and was all amazed to see eating from the treetops. So that's kind of what this Titanosaurus thing looks like. And it's got a big foot. That's all they found. So back in 1998, the foot was excavated along with many other dinosaur bones. The foot, which was instantly nicknamed Bigfoot, was unidentifiable since it was the only bone associated with this, at the time, unknown dinosaur. Anthony Maltese, a curator of the Rocky Mountain Dinosaur Resource Center in Woodland Park, Colorado, and a researcher that participated in the excavation in 1998, helped classify this dinosaur actually very recently. And they did this by using a 3D scanning technique that determined this foot belonged to a relative of the Brachiosaur and more than likely stood 14 feet tall at the hip. While this dinosaur was massive, it's actually probably not the largest one to walk on the Earth. And keep forgetting to do this. I don't know why. I'm so out of practice. But let me shoot that into the chat room for you guys. See if that works there. There you go. Should have been doing that all along. But I'd like to give you guys, anybody that shows up in the chat room, I try to give you guys these a little sneak peek at some of the links that I've created, or if I do have a photograph or something that ties into these stories, I'd like to kind of give you guys a preview. And be careful opening that next link up, because it's got that cool picture of Bigfoot in there. Just posted the Washington Post story there. That's scary stuff. And let me give that virtual reality devil story thingamajiggy. I'll throw that in the chat room as well. So we're going to get caught up here. And yeah, I got more links, but I do put them out through social media during the week after the show is over. So you guys will get what I'm looking at and be able to break down for yourselves or look at these things. And last but not least, as far as Bigfoot is concerned, the last story I should say on Bigfoot and in the cryptozoology section. Now this is a story that I kind of get a little angry with sometimes, so I'll try to keep my composure. Not the kind of story I like to talk about, but it really seems to be trending. So I got to address it. I got to talk about it. It's a news story. And what you guys didn't see there, what I did was I used air quotes as I said news. So it's a news story that was published on July 31st, but actually appeared yesterday on social media. I think it came from a website that was in a different area of the planet. And it has the headline, quote, Bigfoot body discovered on horse farm in Darlington, Maryland, unquote. So this is it. Bigfoot's finally been found. The search is over. And it was found where I completely didn't think it was going to happen. I mean, it's such shocking and important news that it was only reported on one website. And this one website has the URL breakingnews365.net. And the story has been shared from this particular website over 100,000 times. 100,000 times, and even more via posts on Facebook. So it's trending. It's out there. People are looking at this. Now, something funny about breakingnews365.net is that if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see that it says something very, very important. Any of the pages hosted on this particular website, you're going to see this following notice. It says, quote, this website is an entertainment website. Jokes are created by users. These are humorous jokes, fantasy, fictional, that should not be seriously taken or as a source of information, unquote. That's exactly, I took it right off of there. So that's exactly how it sounds. So I don't know, it sounds like a drunk toddler wrote that, but so it's not obviously anything real. The website is one of which I call, and a lot of other people call, parasites. Parasites, a combination of paranormal and, yes, parasites, the infectious agent that lives on or in another organism, known as the host, which will cause the host some harm. Yeah, parasite, something not to be trusted and can infect people who are unwilling to fact check or believe the word of another person blindly. The story is not true. Not true at all. They did not find a dead Bigfoot. Just somebody trying to have some fun to get some clicks and to get on paranormal radio shows like this one. Congratulations. You made it. Yeah, shame on you. And the story is not true, according to Pennsylvania researcher Eric Altman, who has a friend in the who is an officer in the Maryland, the state of Maryland, who confirmed that the story was indeed a hoax. But I already noticed when I saw breakingnews365.net, I already knew Nothing good ever comes from that website, ever. Ever. And it's horribly written, too. If you read the story, which I'll post the link in the chat room again, it's horribly written. Horribly. So, yeah, I wouldn't take it as anything. Anyway, UFO news, UFO conspiracies, cover-ups, and government involvement. Well, it's usually fodder for UFO conferences, conventions. Then you have Comic-Con. Comic-Con celebrates everything for geeks and nerds alike. And yes, they're different things. It's not the same thing. Geeks are fans of the subjects, and nerds are people who are practitioners of these things. Alejandro Rojas recently reported that Comic-Con was the site of an announcement dealing with Project Blue Book. Probably remember that, don't you? One of the world famous investigation areas from the U.S. government that basically shaped UFOs into what we know and love. So during the San Diego Comic-Con, the History Channel announced that it would be producing a scripted drama called, well, Project Blue Book. Following the success of their Vikings scripted drama, they have decided to go full throttle with this one, and they've hired Robert Zemeckis being the executive director. If you might know that name, you're not sure what Zemeckis is tied to. Well, if you've ever heard of Back to the Future, the trilogy, Forrest Gump, and Contact, which kind of ties in with UFOs right there. Yeah, he also had a very big part in those movies as well. Now, the first trailer is out, and it looks very visually appealing. I mean, it's really, really neat. But you're only getting a sneak preview, so I don't know. It's very visually appealing. Although I did notice a few things that are a little bit out of touch with J. Allen Hynek and his work. Kind of a little bit of fiction I already see. But that said, I'll be tuning in definitely. It's not going to be out until winter of this year to be able to watch. But just remember, it says based on true events. So anytime you see that, it means it's loosely tied in with what really happened, but will not necessarily reflect exactly what happened. So there's a little bit of freedom of expression there with this show, I'm sure. And you got to get ratings. You got to get people to watch this stuff. So there'll be a little bit of controversy, but I'm interested in this. I think it's going to be really, 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 really neat. You don't see too many UFO shows on anymore, and this will definitely stir the pot. I won't really fill that gap for the X-Files that we now have, but it's going to be interesting. And I'll share the link to the first trailer in the chat room right now. And again, you guys out there who are not in the chat room, well, shame on you. Where are you at? Where are you at? I mean, I get it. I understand. We all have things to do. Can't all tune in on Tuesday night to listen to a live radio show. But fear not, you will get this link out there somewhat soon, the next few days, and you can watch the trailer. Or, I mean, come on, you can just Google it. Just Google it. Project Blue Book History Channel, and you'll see that. Check it out. It's on YouTube, of course. And another interesting story that it's kind of a complicated science-y thing, but it's really, I think it's fairly significant, or could play a fairly significant part in our future if we are contacted by extraterrestrials, intelligent beings from outer space via long-distance signals, which and a lot of people are under the impression that things like that are a waste of time. SETI, they search for extraterrestrial intelligence, which listens for signals coming from outer space, which is opposite of METI, which is the messaging extraterrestrials intelligence. But we're hopeful that this is possible. But a lot of people think, well, they're already here. People are seeing stuff flying around. People are being abducted. They're hanging out with Bigfoot and the devil. So, yeah. But anyway, the International Academy of Astronautics adopted a 1 to 10 rating system for claims of contact, and this became known as the Rio scale, and that became back in October of 2000. It happened at a UFO meeting in Rio de Janeiro, hence the Rio scale. You've probably heard of the Richter scale, which is used for quantifying earthquake severity, which we kind of already talked about earlier in the show. But what about a potential signal from outer space from an intelligent race? Well, now we have the Rio scale. It's gone, actually was quite, I don't know how you'd call it, elementary. When it first came out, it made some sense. It was a 0 to 10 rating, but now it's been updated. It's actually the third time this Rio scale has been updated since the year 2000. And it's actually outlined in the International Journal of Astrobiology. So this actually made a journal entry. That, folks, is really interesting. UFO research, the potential find of a signal coming from outer space. Work on this has appeared in a journal of astrobiology. I think that's really, really amazing. Just that part of the story, that there are scientists out there that are actually interested in this. I mean, granted, this was SETI researchers that put this out there, but SETI has really expanded. There's a lot of researchers that are listening to the sky, hopeful that maybe we can find a signal from outer space from hopefully a little bit more intelligent of a species than us Earthlings. But you would have said that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people would have laughed about that. Now, with the startling number of exoplanets that are being discovered, it's becoming a real potential reality here. So going through and redoing this scale, this Rio scale, and kind of bringing it up to snuff for 2018, I think is a new, another new step forward for us as potential discoverers of these signals, and maybe getting along with other people, maybe being taken over. I don't know. The new scale has more potential outcomes of information ranked in 4 different questions. From the answers, a value is then created based on statistics from 0 to 10 based on how insignificant or significant this signal is. So 0 would be insignificant and 10 would be extraordinary or extraordinary, however you want to say that. The WOW signal, if you remember back in 1977, pretty close to where I'm sitting right now, just about 2 hours away south of me in the Columbus, Ohio area. 1977, this WOW signal was discovered, and it was thought to be an intelligence signal from outer space. It's been debated. We talked about this last year. The Professor Antonio Paris has found his own information, his own potential evidence that it was caused by comets that were in the Sagittarius area at the time, the same area where the signal was discovered. But it's still controversial. People are still arguing about this. Even that signal that a lot of people say is the hallmark of SETI so far, that's only a 1 on the scale. It's pretty low. It's pretty low down there. And actually have, let me show you a picture of the scale. It's pretty. It's all rainbowy. Rainbowy-ish. And it shows you the scale of 0 to extraordinary, 10. So you go from none to insignificant, low, minor, moderate, intermediate, noteworthy, high, far-reaching, outstanding, and extraordinary, which is interesting. So again, there's a lot of other information that ties into this. And there's basically 4 different segments. So segment 1 would be select a class of phenomena. So it would be, you'd have, I think there's 6 choices here. So, traces of astroengineering or indication of technological activity by an extant or extinct civilization at any distance, or ET artifact. That's your lesser potential possibility. Then you go up leaking radiation without possible interpretation, or an ET artifact. Other choices here, then we move all the way to the top. An Earth-specific message or ET artifact capable of contact or a physical encounter. So that's your class of phenomena. So you choose one of those, then you move to the next thing here. Select type of discovery. So it could be an archival data. So an archival data, you wouldn't have the possibility to verify this. You'd just kind of basically be a one-off kind of thing. And then you would go all the way up to a SETI or SETA observation, SETI phenomena verifiable by repeated observation or investigation. So depending upon the severity, you choose one of those. There's 5 options with good down to not so good types of data. Then you would select the apparent distance. So it would go from extragalactic, which means it's not local. It's pretty far away within the galaxy, within distance, which allows communication at light speed within a human lifetime. So that would be obviously 70 light years or less. Or maybe they mean like 30 light years so we can send messages back and forth. I don't know. Then you get in within the solar system. So that would be awful close. So we're talking between the sun and poor Pluto. That's not a planet anymore. Then you get select credibility of report. So you have the lowest one, which is obviously fake or fraudulent. Then you go up to very uncertain but worthy of verification efforts. Then you have possible but should be verified before taken seriously. Then you have very probable with verification already carried out. Then the best one here would be absolutely reliable without any doubt. So of these 4 selections, you have 6 different ranks from good to bad. So you'd go through and you choose each one of those sections, and then you get a value from that, from the Rio scale value. And again, it would be from 0 to 10, and that would put you on this little colorful list to figure out what it is. And hopefully this Rio scale is something that a lot of other researchers, if potentially we do get that signal, that everyone will use this list so we can all be on the same page with any kind of potential signal. And I've actually kind of used something similar to this for my stories unofficially, but then I kind of talked about my own potential evidence weight scale, which goes 1 through 10 as well. But I don't have such a formatted thing there. But I think that's really, really interesting the way they have that put out there. And if everyone does get on that same page, then I think that's really, really, really important. That if we do get to that point where all this stuff ties in, then we can write it on the scale. So depending upon the researcher, but everyone has their own opinion. I know there's different. Mexico, they have their own rating system for contact, and it's basically kind of the same thing, but not the far distance type contact stuff. It's more for whether it's a signal or if it's local, whether it's contact. Somebody lands in Mexico City and wants to see the president down there, or lands on the White House lawn. So there's different scales for different countries, but hopefully this one becomes something that has a little bit more weight and a lot of other people take seriously. And well, we'll cover this real quick here. Other news, you heard about this. The big announcement, it just came a few days ago. Big news. Yeah, we found water on Mars. So that's it. We found life, right? Where there's water, there's life. That's what people are saying. But people began speculating that this meant we would also find life on the red planet. But let's slow down. Let's rewind for a second. Let's not get all excited. The water has actually been found on Mars already. This isn't the first time. Granted, this water is not in large concentrations. It's actually in the atmosphere. So this is a little different. This water that was found on the poles and also underground. There's ice on the planet's surface. But this latest find was actually figured out by numerous radar scans of the surface. And I thought this was really interesting until they actually read about how they did this. And now I'm a little skeptical about this. So they looked at these radar scans of the surface. Then they spent 2 years comparing surface patterns of what they saw on Mars to those on Earth, and came to the conclusion that there's a 12-mile stretch of salty liquid water about a mile under the surface. They think. They think. There is no proof that such a pool of water exists. But the leading thought of this research is that it does. But Elena Pettinelli of Italy's Rome Tre University, a co-author of the paper reporting the discovery in the journal Science, was not completely convinced that this is an actual underwater lake. So even people that are involved in a study, there are people that don't believe in this, that their data is flawed. And that's science, folks. You don't take one observational piece and say that it's factoid. It's not. Science is a process. And hopefully other researchers will either look at that data or get other independent data and look at this before we send a spaceship with a drill on it and send Bruce Willis and a crew down there to drill into the surface to get more water. That's going to make a really good movie. I can see it already. Yeah. So Pettinelli says, quote, "We can't choose between one or the other. We don't have enough information to say this is a lake or saturated sediment like an aquifer." And the lake would be more interesting. So they don't even know if it's actually liquid, free-flowing water under the surface, or it's just like quicksand or an aquifer. It's heavy, just saturated mud, basically, under that surface. Now, meanwhile, another orbiter viewing Mars with ground-penetrating radar has not seen this anomaly, and the team researching their data does not see what the European Space Agency's Mars Express spacecraft team has purportedly found with their Marsis radar system. So hopefully they'll publish their work. And again, that's science. When you're trying to find evidence of something and one report says yes, we need another one to go out there to confirm this or not. But I'm excited about space. If you follow the show at all, I do talk a lot about space findings and space things because we're at a really interesting time in humanity because we're exploring space. Yes, we don't have the USS Enterprise out there zooming around planets and meeting new strange civilizations, going where no man has gone before, no woman or no person, no gender neutral person. I don't know what to say anymore. I'm afraid to even say anything with MAN at the end of it. But we're looking, we're searching, and this is the beginning of a really interesting phase of humanity, and it's really, really awesome. Also out in space, I'm excited to learn that the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite sounds really technological until you call it by its pet name, which is TESS, Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite. I think they just came up with TESS and said, what can we make TESS, what can we make that acronym do? I don't know. So it's accomplished its testing tasks and is now beginning to gather data. TESS was launched back in April, and it underwent a few months worth of testing, but at last Wednesday, it began to gather data that's going to be transmitted in a few days. I'm really excited about this. Now, TESS is looking for other planets, exoplanets, so planets outside of our known solar system. And it's going to do just like what other satellites and telescopes have done, like the Kepler Space Telescope, by looking for small dips in the brightness of individual stars that is caused by a planet passing between its star and the telescope. TESS will be operating in an elliptical orbit that's never before been used in high orbit beyond Earth's upper atmosphere. And it's going to be about 3 times the distance from Earth as typical satellites. But then it'll dip a little bit closer to Earth, and it's going to actually orbit the Earth every 13.7 days. And during its low orbit phase, it's going to transit through the Van Allen radiation belt, which is interesting, and that people have a lot of opinions about. But TESS will hopefully map the northern hemisphere of the solar system in its first year, I should say, of the galaxy, and the southern hemisphere in its second year of its planned 2-year mission. After that, a new space telescope will hopefully be launched. I've got my fingers and toes crossed. They've had a series of delays lately, but I'm looking forward to, in a couple of years, hopefully, a new satellite's going to be going up there. I'm excited about what TESS is going to be doing. It's going to be checking up on these findings, and it's going to be doing a little bit of research on its own. It's actually like a middle step towards the next telescope, which is the James Webb Space Telescope, launching the next couple of years. It's so big that when it launches, I want to be there. I want to be there. I want to see this thing launched. I mean, yeah, it's something that's not going to happen in my time. And even if we were to do a mission to another planet, I mean, it could take forever to get there. But it's this discovery. It's the thing that we need to do in the beginning before we. I mean, we're trying to figure out how to get there, but if we don't know where to go, yeah, it's going to be in South America. I bet I'd still like to watch. I'll watch it anyway. I'll call off of work and watch it on TV or my phone. I don't know, but I'm just excited about this James Webb Space Telescope. It's going to be exciting, and yes, any kind of discovery is going to happen after our lifetimes. We've got to figure out how to be able to have a person survive in space without osteoporosis and all these other dementia and all these other things that seem like they happen in short periods of time, even around just going around in orbit. There's so many weird things that happen to the human body. We're not ready for it yet. We're not ready for it yet. But why not look? Why not probe? Why not? We never just using big binoculars looking to see what's out there. And eventually, beyond my lifetime and lifetime of people that I know now and young kids and little babies that are maybe laying there in the crib listening to the show in the background as I put them to sleep, even beyond their lifetimes, this stuff will probably not happen. But maybe with science, we can figure out a way to get travel hundreds of light years and be able to see this stuff. I think it's going to be exciting for that generation. Way down there on the list, but that's for a whole other show. And I'm out of time. I hope you enjoyed the show. A lot of news, a lot of information. And again, you'll hear me next week. I'll be here live. But for now, keep your eyes in the skies, your ears in the woods, the hair standing on the back of your neck, and always keep your mind at least slightly ajar. And above all else, don't stop believing. For the Paranormal News Insider, this is Dr. Brian D. Parsons reporting.